In the tumultuous landscape of American politics, the Democratic National Committee (DNC) is currently grappling with a significant internal conflict that threatens to overshadow its broader goals of countering the Republican Party and preparing for the upcoming congressional elections. What began as a procedural challenge regarding party bylaws has escalated into a full-blown feud among prominent party figures, drawing national attention and media scrutiny that could detract from the DNC's efforts to unite against former President Donald Trump. The crux of this conflict revolves around the DNC's February 1 election for new party officers, which has come under fire due to alleged violations of the party's longstanding bylaws. Kalyn, a DNC member and former federal prosecutor, launched a challenge after losing a bid for vice chair, claiming that the election process favored male candidates over females. This challenge led the DNC's Credentials Committee to recommend a redo of the election on May 12, throwing the legitimacy of newly elected vice chairs, including gun control activist David Hogg and Pennsylvania State Representative Malcolm Kenyatta, into question. Free's complaint cites changes to the DNC's bylaws made over 50 years ago to ensure gender parity in leadership roles. She expressed frustration that a contest intended to address fairness and representation had devolved into a public spat between herself and the new vice chairs, with Hogg and Kenyatta trading barbs in media interviews. The reason David Hogg is able to talk about this chaos is because the media likes to see a food fight, Free noted, highlighting how the spectacle of their conflict has drawn attention away from the DNC's critical mission. As tensions escalate, the DNC's leadership is facing mounting pressure to resolve the situation swiftly. A Rules and Bylaws Committee meeting is set for May 22, where discussions on the rerun of the election will take place. The urgency is palpable. As Free articulated, this is a big freaking deal, emphasizing the importance of adhering to party rules and the implications of disenfranchisement among female and minority members. Meanwhile, the party's identity crisis is also evident in Philadelphia, where local Democrats express uncertainty about their national leadership. During a recent election day gathering, officials and voters alike struggled to identify a figure who could rally the party. Noted figures such as Senators Cory Booker and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez received mentions as potential leaders. But many attendees felt that no single individual has emerged as a strong enough unifying force. City Council member Isaiah Thomas reflected the sentiment of stagnation. We're in a time of transition, the baton is not always being passed the way it should be. Amidst these internal struggles, Democrats are bracing for a chaotic primary season in 2026, which could further complicate their efforts to reclaim control of the House of Representatives. With a surge of candidates driven by discontent towards both the Republican Party and the Democratic establishment, concerns are growing that a fragmented primary landscape could drain resources and undermine their chances in the general election. The House Majority PAC has indicated a willingness to intervene in both Democratic and Republican primaries if necessary, signaling a recognition of the need for strategic oversight amid rising competition. As the DNC grapples with these challenges, the stakes are undeniably high. The party must navigate its internal divisions while presenting a united front against a resurgent Republican Party. With the election landscape shifting rapidly and the clock ticking down to the 2026 elections, the need for clarity, leadership, and cohesion has never been more pressing for Democrats. How the DNC resolves its infighting and identifies its leaders in the coming months will be crucial in shaping the party's future and its ability to mobilize voters effectively. In a politically charged atmosphere at the Capitol, House Republicans are making significant strides toward advancing President Donald Trump's ambitious tax reform bill, which promises to deliver multi-trillion-dollar tax breaks, substantial spending cuts, and enhanced border security measures. As the clock ticks down to Memorial Day, House Speaker Mike Johnson expressed optimism that his party would secure enough support for the bill despite lingering dissent among conservative factions. The legislative journey has been anything but smooth. Following an extensive 18-hour session, the House Rules Committee continues to grapple with the complexities of the proposed bill. "We're on schedule," Johnson stated confidently before heading to discussions with the White House, underscoring his commitment to the timeline previously set by Republican leaders. However, the scene inside the Capitol belies his optimism, as dissenting voices within the party such as Representative John Rose of Tennessee have emerged, complicating the path to consensus. While the GOP leadership pushes forward, Democrats are mounting a vigorous counteroffensive. Outside the Capitol, a rally attended by House Democrats highlighted their opposition to the bill, with Representative Brad Schneider, chair of the New Democrat Coalition, challenging Republican colleagues to abandon what he termed a partisan path. Schneider's comments reflect a broader Democratic strategy to spotlight the bill's potential cuts to Medicaid and other social programs, which they argue disproportionately impact low-income Americans. This is not a path that strengthens our economy or opens opportunities for all Americans, Schneider asserted. As the debate over the bill intensifies, the broader implications of the proposed tax cuts and spending changes are coming into focus. The legislation, which is expected to cut taxes by approximately $3.8 trillion, primarily benefits wealthier Americans while imposing significant cuts on healthcare, education, and clean energy programs. These cuts, Republicans argue, are necessary to offset the costs of tax reductions. But critics warn they could leave millions of Americans without essential services. The Congressional Budget Office has projected that the legislation could result in 8.6 million more uninsured Americans by the end of the decade. The bill's provisions include not only tax cuts but also a substantial increase in military spending and a bolstered immigration enforcement budget. This broad approach aims to unify various factions within the Republican Party, though it remains to be seen whether enough consensus can be forged in time for a successful vote. Moderate Republicans from high-tax states have expressed concerns about specific tax provisions, particularly regarding state and local tax deductions, indicating that the path to passage will require careful negotiation. In parallel developments, the Trump administration has been navigating other contentious issues, including accusations of deportation policy violations and a controversial acceptance of a Boeing 747 from Qatar to be retrofitted for presidential use. These matters, combined with the ongoing legislative efforts, illustrate the multifaceted challenges facing the administration as it seeks to reshape both domestic policy and its public image. As the House prepares for what could be a pivotal vote, the implications of this tax reform bill will resonate far beyond the immediate political landscape, potentially reshaping the financial landscape for millions of Americans. With the deadline looming, all eyes will be on the Republican leadership's ability to rally their members and the Democratic response as they brace for what promises to be a contentious legislative battle. The outcome of this bill could set the tone for the remainder of the Trump administration and its legacy in American economic policy. In a significant turn of events, the U.S. Senate has voted to block California's ambitious electric car mandate, a move that could reshape the state's trajectory in its decades-long fight against air pollution and climate change. The decision, made during a marathon session, reflects deepening political divisions over environmental policies and signals of potential legal confrontations between the state and federal government. The Senate's vote, which followed a similar decision in the House of Representatives last month, revokes a waiver previously granted by the Biden administration that allowed California to phase out gas-powered vehicles. Under the original mandate, 35% of new cars sold in California by 2026 were to be zero-emission, with that figure rising to 68% by 2030 and 100% by 2035. This requirement was part of California's strategy to combat its notorious air quality issues, the worst in the nation, and to mitigate greenhouse gas emissions. Advocates for the Senate's decision, primarily Republicans, argue that the mandate is overly expensive and impractical, limiting consumer choice. "This is a whole new meaning in California of fantasy land," stated Senator John Barrasso of Wyoming, who emphasized the impracticality of the standards. Conversely, Democrats, including California Senators Alex Padilla and Adam Schiff, condemned the vote as illegal, asserting that the mandate is crucial for public health and environmental protection. Governor Gavin Newsom, a staunch supporter of the mandate, declared that zero-emission vehicles are here to stay, highlighting the importance of maintaining California's leadership in clean air initiatives. The implications of this decision are profound. California has historically been granted the authority to set stricter vehicle emissions standards under the Clean Air Act, a right established due to its significant air pollution challenges. The recent Senate action marks a departure from decades of precedent wherein Congress and the Environmental Protection Agency (EPA) have not blocked California's stringent regulations. Experts predict that this unprecedented move could lead to a complex legal battle, with California's administration likely to challenge the Senate's decision based on the improper application of the Congressional Review Act, which is intended to revoke regulatory changes rather than waivers. The potential fallout from this legislative shift could be severe. California may need to resort to voluntary measures to meet federal air quality standards, such as offering incentives for electric vehicle purchases despite grappling with a $12 billion budget deficit. Furthermore, environmental advocates warn that this could set a dangerous precedent, undermining decades of public health protections established under the Clean Air Act. This is a major blow to the decades-long public health protections delivered under the Clean Air Act, remarked Will Barrett of the American Lung Association, underscoring the risks posed to vulnerable communities. The political landscape surrounding electric vehicle policies continues to evolve, reflecting broader national debates over climate change and environmental regulations. As California prepares for the likely legal challenges ahead, the outcome of this battle may not only determine the future of electric vehicles in the state but could also reshape the national dialogue on environmental responsibility and consumer rights. With the Senate's vote serving as a catalyst for potential litigation, all eyes will be on California as it navigates this pivotal moment in its environmental policy history. In a tightly contested vote, the U.S. House of Representatives has passed President Donald Trump's ambitious tax and spending bill, a momentous legislation dubbed the Big Beautiful Bill. This sweeping package, which passed with a narrow margin of 215 to 214, is poised to reshape the American fiscal landscape as it moves to the Senate for further deliberation. The legislation aims to extend tax cuts from Trump's previous term while injecting substantial funds into military spending and immigration enforcement. Following the vote, Trump expressed confidence in the bill's passage through the Senate, asserting that there is no time to waste in advancing this transformative legislation. House Speaker Mike Johnson lauded the bill as generational nation-shaping legislation, emphasizing its potential to significantly alter the financial frameworks that govern American families and businesses. However, the legislation has drawn fierce opposition from Democrats, who warned that the proposed tax cuts could lead to severe consequences for millions of lower-income citizens. Hospitals will close, nursing homes will shut down, and communities will suffer, Democrats cautioned in a joint statement following the bill's passage. The Congressional Budget Office projects that the bill could add $5.2 trillion to the national debt and increase the deficit by approximately $600 billion in the next fiscal year. The bill's passage was the culmination of intense negotiations within the Republican Party, particularly among factions with differing priorities. Some conservative members pushed for stringent cuts to safety net programs, including Medicaid and the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program (SNAP), which are expected to restrict access for many Americans. These changes are projected to impact 8.6 million individuals who rely on Medicaid, raising concerns about the repercussions on the healthcare system. In an effort to secure votes from skeptical lawmakers, Johnson incorporated various amendments to appease both hardliners and moderates. Notably, the legislation will accelerate Medicaid work requirements and expedite the reduction of clean energy tax credits established under the Biden administration. Additionally, the bill proposes an expansion of the state and local tax SALT deduction cap, which was a significant point of contention for representatives from high-tax states. Despite the internal divisions, Johnson's leadership, coupled with Trump's intervention during a Republican conference meeting, proved pivotal in rallying support. The House Speaker acknowledged the fragility of the coalition that supported the bill, stating, "There was a few moments over the last week when it looked like the thing might fall apart." His remarks underscored the high-stakes nature of the vote and the potential implications for the Republican agenda moving forward. Conversely, Democratic leaders have decried the process as one conducted under the cover of darkness, emphasizing their commitment to opposing the bill in the Senate. Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries warned that the ramifications of the legislation would be felt in the upcoming 2026 midterm elections, potentially placing Republicans at risk of losing their majority. As the bill heads to the Senate, where Republicans aim to finalize it by July 4, the debate over its contents is far from over. Lawmakers will face the challenge of balancing differing viewpoints within their party while responding to the stark criticisms from Democrats and advocacy groups concerned about the legislation's impact on vulnerable populations. The outcome of this legislative effort could not only define the remainder of Trump's presidency but also alter the contours of American social and economic policy for years to come. The nation watches closely as this pivotal moment in U.S. politics unfolds, anticipating both the immediate and long-term consequences of these sweeping changes. In a significant ruling reflecting the ongoing tension between religious freedom and the separation of church and state, the U.S. Supreme Court has left in place a lower court's decision blocking the establishment of the nation's first religious charter school. The case, which centered on the proposed St. Isidore of Seville virtual charter school in Oklahoma, has become a focal point for debates surrounding the funding of religious education within the public school system. On May 22, 2025, the Supreme Court was deadlocked at 4-4 after Justice Amy Coney Barrett recused herself from the case, which left the Oklahoma Supreme Court's ruling intact. This ruling determined that a charter school operated by the Catholic Church would violate constitutional mandates designed to maintain a clear division between government and religion. The court's brief announcement did not specify how the justices voted, nor did it set a legal precedent due to the lack of a majority decision. Neil McCluskey, director of the Cato Institute's Center for Educational Freedom, commented on the implications of the court's decision, suggesting that it signals a preference for private school choice programs over charter schools for addressing perceived discrimination against religious institutions within the public education system. The right way to address discrimination against religion by our public education system is through private school choice programs, not charters, he stated. The case posed a significant challenge to the interpretation of the First Amendment, which protects both the free exercise of religion and prohibits the establishment of religion. During oral arguments, the court's conservative majority appeared sympathetic to the Catholic Church's position, which argued that the charter school would provide educational options without imposing religion on students, as attendance would be voluntary. However, one conservative justice sided with the liberal justices, leading to the split decision. The Oklahoma Supreme Court had previously ruled that charter schools are public institutions that must adhere to secular educational standards, a stance supported by Oklahoma Attorney General Gentner Drummond. He raised concerns that allowing religious charter schools could lead to a chaotic situation where taxpayer funds might be used to support a wide range of religious teachings, potentially including extremist viewpoints. If Oklahoma's requirement that charter schools be both public and non-sectarian is unconstitutional, then so are everyone else's, Drummond cautioned. The Catholic Church, supported by the National Alliance for Public Charter Schools, contended that charter schools, while publicly funded, should not be classified as public schools in the traditional sense. They argued that the independence charter schools have from state oversight allows for a different interpretation of what constitutes a public education. This distinction is critical, as it could fundamentally alter the landscape of educational funding and governance across the country. The Supreme Court's decision comes on the heels of several recent rulings that have expanded the role of religion in public life, suggesting a complex and evolving relationship between educational policy and religious rights. As the nation grapples with the implications of this deadlock, attention will turn to upcoming cases that could further define the boundaries between religious freedom and public education. In light of this ruling, advocates on both sides of the issue are bracing for a future filled with legal battles over the intersection of education funding and religious rights. As other cases related to religious freedoms are set to be heard by the Supreme Court, the implications of this decision will likely resonate through ongoing debates in public policy and education reform.